Welcome to the Rebel Road Show.
How many tulips is too many tulips?
We're talking with people making money off the beaten path. Let's kick it over to Madeline, who's got some drinks for us.
Tequila, gin.
Oh, and I'm getting paid for this too? Dope.
Every shoot's almost Fyre Fest, right? We're a picture of a sandwich away from just being canceled. Every shoot. Cheers. Tommy, what's up, man?
Oh man, how you doing, bro?
We got Tommy from The Block. For those that don't know, The Block is the hottest restaurant in the Northeast. It's an hour outside New York City. It's got amazing food, amazing cocktails, and it has an edgy vibe that's unique. And I think it's always lends itself to an amazing time. So thank you for coming here and joining the Rebel Road Show.
I appreciate you having me. I really do.
So like one thing, the reason we have this podcast, we're celebrating rebels in business. And I think that The Block has this unique perspective on, you know, their brand. While it has evolved and you've really made it a fine dining experience, it still has this like counterculture 90s edge, which is really cool. And you don't cave to these self-proclaimed Yelp critics out there who try to dictate to you how they feel your restaurant should be run, and you have some fun with it.
No doubt.
Talk to me a little bit about like that aspect of it. Like, how did you create this atmosphere, and was that always part of your plan when creating The Block?
You know what? It wasn't part of the plan at all. Like I can't say that it was. I mean, you know, you go into this thing and you hear the, you know, let's call them rules or whatever of operating a business and running a business. You know, I would say it started, you know, I had the apron, I had an apron on, I had a bandana tied around my head. I was busting tables, running tables. And, you know, I was trying to please every single person that walked through that door. And like, that was my goal, was to make sure every single person that walked out of there, you know, felt important, felt special, felt, you know, the gratitude that I felt towards them. And that was my goal for every single person. And, you know, for the most part, it worked in the beginning until, you know, you find that one person that you're trying to please them, and there's no pleasing them. And then you just say, wait a minute, like, hold on, like this is how this is going to go. And you still have to bow down or still have to do it. And I just kind of said, you know what, this just isn't the place for you. And kind of putting that out there to them, that's kind of, you know, just started this edginess of like, you know what, this isn't for everybody. And I'm not for everybody, and the place isn't for everybody. And I think that we kind of just went with that, and it just kind of all unraveled along the way. You got pushback one way, you know, in a positive way, and I got tons of pushback in a negative way. So
I think that the biggest way to set yourself up for failure is to try to please everybody, right? Because then you just become vanilla and bland. When you have a vision and operate in a way that you would want to experience a restaurant, I think that's the best way, because there's a lot of Tommies out there, right? So if you can cater to yourself and you know that I know this is good, then there's going to be a lot of people that will follow suit.
Yeah.
And I think you do a really good job of that. I mean, this is your first restaurant, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's popular as all hell. It's impossible to get in there.
Yeah, it's cool. So, I mean, I don't know if you know how much of the backstory you kind of know. Yeah, we're here. Shout out to the Julio brothers.
Yes,
on the last fight, right?
We have a mutual friend. They brought me to The Block in the middle of the pandemic. I hadn't heard about it because I was a bubble boy at the time, but I had an amazing time, and I was like, "Holy, what is this place? This is awesome."
Good friends, great people. You know, I could recall a time sitting, you know, before I had opened, and I'm with Jeremy, and I'm just, you know, trying to explain to him what I had envisioned for this space. And it was, you know, if you ask him, it was, I'm picturing you coming after work to get a cool high-end piece of meat from this, you know, old industrial warehouse, and maybe you grab a coffee and a sandwich on the way out. And, you know, my hours were supposed to be 9 to 5, just like this local butcher. Kind of wanted to bring back the vibe of the old butcher, where it was personal, where it was one-on-one, where you had a relationship with them. You know, that kind of got lost. That was my goal. You know,
your goal was just to open up a butcher shop.
Butcher shop, man. Butcher shop within my dad's distribution, right? So my dad, distributor, he sells all the restaurants in the area up and down the shore. I did sales for him. We were on that same street, so West Avenue, you know, the same street where The Block is. We had a warehouse there. My dad had operated there for 25 plus years. There was a company called Dutch Prime Foods down the street. Similar company, right? Small distributor, personal, go to all these restaurants in the shore area. We were friendly, right? Friendly competitors. They kind of tapped out one day and said, "Hey, we're getting older. You got too young," to my dad, you know, "you got 2 young sons. Come take the space over." It was a deal made on a Friday. We finished up business. On Monday, we merged the 2 companies together. That simple.
Wow.
We moved everything to the operating business, whereas The Block now, with the old Dutch Prime building. And there was a retail section where people from, the local neighborhood would come in. They would buy the overrun of steaks at a cheap cost. Like they would just grab them out of these, open door refrigerators. And there was a deli case in the back that had discounted like boar's head meats and sandwich meats. When we did that, I said, hey, I'd like to operate this part of it. I want to deal with people. Right? It's
Right,
funny how
yeah.
it goes. The whole point of me doing is I wanted to be one-on-one with people. I wanted to be in service. Like I really did. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed conversations. And my dad and brother said, all right, we want no part of it. If we're up to them, they would have closed that part
Really?
of the space down. Midway through, like I said, butcher shop, I thought it'd be cool to kind of bring that nostalgia to this old building. It was a meat hanging building. I thought it would be great to kind of, sell the novelty of that, of people coming there, getting your meat straight from this distributor and, and grab a sandwich and a coffee while you're hanging out. Kind of, like a cool little market vibe.
Was that like 2018?
That was in, 2018 was the planning. 2019 of May, we opened.
And that's what it originally was.
And that's what it originally was. And then by day 3, I had a friend come in and they were like, dude, you should do dinner. I went to my only, I had 2 guys in the back, my chef and a sous chef who were both still with me today. And I said, you want to do dinner tonight? Yeah. Who do you got? I said, I don't know. Let's bring, I'll bring, a couple tables in. They came up with a menu. It was all derived around the butcher. I was actually working the butcher case. So you would go into the butcher. I was the butcher at that time, and I barely knew how to cut any meat, so I'd have people pick their meat that night, and it was just a Saturday night thing. So we did that.
Real casual type.
Real casual. It was so cool. We grabbed, by the 3rd week, I was, at my, I'd run back and forth to my house where I'd take every chair and table that I had in my house. Then I went to my mom and dad's house, grabbed every chair and table they had, and, that's how it was built. It was literally built using all those tables, and, it was organic. So I didn't know what I was getting into. I had no clue. The guys behind me just kind of let me lead the way, and they followed suit. They put their heads down, and we grinded through it.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. I want to say opening day, I had 4 or 5 employees, and I think today you're up to 111.
How many tables was it when you started doing, like, not that first night you did dinner, but when you opened and had that 4 and 5 employees? How many tables?
I would say at that point you were at like maybe 10, 12 tables.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then did it like catch wind right away?
It did. Every week it just gradually kind of, it got busier, and you just saw it kind of picking up. It just and I say organically too. It was just organic. People just showing up at the door, and like you said before, my mentality was to please whatever it took to please every single person that walked through that door. And I never worked in a restaurant before, so we can kind of go back to that either. I had 0 restaurant experience. Anyone in the restaurant, they talk about all my guys in the back, they're restaurant guys. My chef was a restaurant guy. I mean, obviously, and he had experience, and they call it like when you're in the weeds, like you're weeded. Yeah. And I had no idea. I'm walking around saying, we're in the woods right now. We're in the woods, and it's just like all this lingo that it all just kind of took, and I figured it out. And part of that was what worked against me was that I didn't know the rules. I didn't know what they were. I just did it. I played the songs that I liked, I served the food that I liked that he cooked, and, everything that I did, the people that were working for me, if we're friends, some of my best friends, like, yo, I need help tonight. And they, they're showing up, and we're just putting on this show.
Wow.
And that was how it started. And that was as organic as anything could get.
Well, it's evolved into a really incredible place. So kudos to you for doing that. Brooke knows. If anybody knows how much I talk about the block, even though I've never taken her.
Yeah.
Brooke, let's go.
I'm very slighted by it.
Yeah, let's go.
I keep getting promised it, and every time it gets pushed off, so.
You might be my celebrity bartender one
Okay,
night.
let's do it.
Okay, I only have like a few cocktails under my belt, but I
So
got you.
Brooke is our bartender today. So Brooke, what are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking a Oaxacan Old Fashioned. It's big and bold, just like the block. You got mezcal, tequila, a little bit of agave, and then 2 splashes of bitters.
I don't know if it's as good as the block tails.
Well, I've heard, and I'm so happy that you don't drink and you can't compare the 2.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty good.
I know they're not on the
RIPs.
menu anymore. I asked them.
You can still order them.
I know.
You know that,
I
right?
ordered them.
Yeah.
The guy's like, oh, okay, you know.
You know your shit. Yeah.
Wait, what can we order there?
It's
Cheers.
an RIP. Yeah, cheers. I got my water, so cheers.
Cheers. Well,
Isn't that like a bad luck thing? But
we didn't clink.
I
It's
still
all
kinda
good.
It's fine.
I roll with it.
It's all good. So you had 12 tables. Word of mouth's growing. Are you just adding tables and staff as it goes, or did you sit down and be like, I'm going to go for this?
No, organic. Kind of told you. I just rolled with it, man. I rolled with it. I got to shout out, Bud Carter and Connor Halpin, both with me today. Connor Halpin's now our chef, and Bud's my right hand now. He's my guy. Those are my two guys day one. They just rolled, man. They just put their heads down and rolled, and I didn't know where it was going, and I honestly just let it take me, man. I let it take me, and is learning how to do reservations, learning how to manage this thing. I mean, it's a grind. I walk into places nowadays, no matter what it is, and it's a totally new viewpoint, totally new respect for people. And that was kind of how the whole edginess started. Is like, wow, this is what people have been dealing with for years, and nobody knows what goes into it.
Yeah.
Nobody gets our side of it, man. Nobody gets to hear that story. And that's where I was like, maybe this is a cool platform and restaurant, and maybe this is someone that's never done it before, and now I'm experiencing it. It's just like, wow, I have a whole new respect, and people should start to have respect, for what these people put into these businesses, and especially a restaurant. You're coming into their home, man. Like, that's it.
I mean, Brooke will know this. She was in the service business also, but like being part of a restaurant staff, I mean, if you're an owner of a restaurant, it is your life, right? I mean, you're there all the time. Yeah. You're there every night. It's a big sacrifice to run that place, but like the feeling of like pride and loving, that's your family.
It's business, and then you always say business isn't personal, but I take it is my life, and you see my kids, they got the butcher block stickers, and they take it to school with pride, and I'm like, I take that same pride in it. It's my time away from them, and I'm grateful that it's able to provide this an awesome life for them, and but no doubt, man, it is. I say it's personal. Like I take it that way, and that's kind of the way I put it out. And if people can't handle that, that's how I operate it. I mean, and it's all love, everything that you do, and I make sure everyone that walks in that door, feels that love until they don't. Unfortunately, it's definitely emotional. Where sometimes, that side of me, it gets to me, and I kind of make decisions. I've said things, I've done things, some that when I really reflect on it, I'm like, wow, I wasn't happy with how I handled that situation. And like I said to you before, I would love to sit down with those people and just kind of have that conversation of hey, right, I understand where you were at, and this is where I was at. I think more people would understand that way. And I think that goes for everything going on in the world today.
Right. I mean, we are in this like keyboard warrior, Karen's gone wild kind of place.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the advertising that kind of shows off that side of the story, where you're not just a business that some random review is going to judge all the work that you've put in. You kind of take the fight to people.
I kind of come back in a way. I like to give them a little snark back. And why not? I mean, and this is my whole thing, is I'm on this other side. I'm having fun with it, man. I really am. I'm having so much fun with it. I always have until these things, and they bother me. I can't say that you wake up and you see a bad review. These guys know that it'll eat at me, because no one is a bigger critic of that place and what the work that goes into it. No one's a bigger critic than me. No one's harder on staff about it. No one's harder on employees about it. And I understood those things. And that's kind of where you said, earlier you pulled an 8 Mile where you're kind of throwing, my downfalls at me. I'm like, well, these are what they are. I'm working to make all of them better, but it's going to take time, because if you understood the whole story and where it came from, it's organic, man. This is the only freaking bathroom that I got.
Right. You had a unisex bathroom at first.
Yeah.
Which is like, in the city that happens,
dude,
all the time.
I was in Carbone the other night, and I'm like in the back, and I'm like, this line for the bathrooms, like this reminds me of the old block. I'm like, wait, maybe it wasn't that bad after all.
It wasn't.
It was pretty gnarly, dude.
Yeah, it was a little strange, but it was like,
it was.
I know it led to the edginess of it. Like, I wasn't expecting this was a unisex bathroom. Okay, whatever.
That was the hand that I was dealt, man. I mean, like, that was it. And yeah, I get it. But people were brutal about it. And people walking out like, that was gross. And I'm just like, come on. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm working on it.
Right.
I got engineering plans. I got this. Things don't work like that. Not today.
I mean, some of your videos on social media are just so funny. Any hate you embrace and use it as like a strength, which is like a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
And you do it in a very funny way.
And thank you for choosing the Butcher's Block. Butcher's Block. Butcher's Block. Butcher's Block. 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 Block.
We're trying to have fun with it, and that's what I wish people saw, and I wish people hopped on that, and I wish more people did that with their everyday life, just in general. And that's kind of the way my approach is when I start to take things too serious and I catch myself doing it, you know, I try and put that spin on it that like, I got to enjoy this thing. You know, I always say that you sometimes have to go back and see where you came from. And, you know, the block started with an apron on and a bandana tied around my head, just having fun. And, you know, that's what got me here. And the second that I lose that, I don't know if that's what I want to do anymore, you know?
Wow.
So I always try and take it back to that. Like, let's make sure we're always having fun. Always.
And I think that's a great philosophy because you feel that when you're there.
I think that's what it turned into was an experience. And that's kind of one of my, you know, I always say, you know, to staff, and one of the things when we're, you know, we call it a pregame is, you know, you want people to leave and you want it to be memorable. And like, to me, that's important. And we have that power. Not only is it just the food, or is it, you know, a certain, you know, light fixture or chandelier or any design feature, but I'm like, it's the people. I'm like, you have that impact. You know, you make that memorable. You mentioned earlier, right? Like, his name is Nebby. He's the guy that does the case that recommended. Yeah,
your beef sommelier.
Yeah, my meat sommelier, if you want to call him that. Dude, Nebby's a great story, man. He so if we want to start numbering people, I want to say he was number 5, right? You know, one day I had a friend reach out. I was like, hey, do you need any help there? And I'm like, I don't know what I need yet. You know, I'm doing lunch and I do dinner once a week. I don't know what I need. And this guy shows up and he says, hey, I'm Nebby. I'm from New Hope, Pennsylvania. I'm like, dude, I'm busy right now. Like, you know, literally I'm looking at him. I'm in the middle of lunch, bandana, apron, helping people. And I'm like, you know what, dude, if you want to come back after lunch, come back in like maybe 2-3 hours. And he literally just drove here from New Hope and I'm like, what does this guy want? He waited. And then afterwards I'm like, all right, do some roll-ups. You could work tonight. And then that was it. The rest was history. If he didn't show up that day, I don't know if I make it to where we're sitting here right now. I mean, I didn't know how to serve tables or what to do. He had a little experience. His dad owned a restaurant, and now he's our meat sommelier. And
like
he
for those that don't know, when you order at the block, you pick everything, and then you walk into the butcher shop aspect of it.
I call it a meat gallery. It's like
meat gallery. It is, because it's all meat displayed really nice. And he kind of breaks down everything, all the cuts and what it means. And he introduced me to some shit that I'd never had before. Spinel.
Spinalis. So it's the cap of the ribeye. Phenomenal.
It's amazing. Brooke, you ever had that?
No.
We're going to make sure you do soon.
I'm waiting.
It's the outer edge of the tomahawk, right?
Yeah, exactly, of the rib, yeah.
I mean, when you came back, you described it, and I feel like
it's awesome.
It's seamsbomb.com.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite, too.
It was. Yeah, that was a cool experience. I'd never experienced that before. I've been to a lot of steakhouses. I'm just a meat and potatoes kind of eater, but I've never had that experience before. And it was
it's cool. He makes it. You know, he brings the energy. You know, I always like going back. I mean, and the reason why Nebby's in that place, I don't know if you noticed, but every single person that walks in that building gets touched by him.
Yeah.
And I think when you get touched by him, you're getting touched by the origination of the block. You know, it's the energy, it's the passion. You know, he brings it every single time, and it's, you know, the whole explanation of the case and doing it. But I think he gets across the mission of you know, of what we are. And he is, let's just say, he's the brand of like, you know, we're trying to have some fun here. I hope you know, showing the gratitude towards the people and you make and break there. I mean, if you walk out of there and you're like, that wasn't awesome or he wasn't great, I'm like, all right, come on. Now it's on you, man.
Yeah.
Now it's on you.
I've only seen photos of it, but like, it just seems like an amazing experience. And like, you clearly put so much like love and effort into it.
Now, I've only shown her the pictures, but like, it's a beautiful spot. Like, that's not what it looked like when you started.
Nah, it was all
those first 12 tables.
Listen, so the history of that building, it was built in the 50s, and it was it's backed up to the Long Branch train station. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, we actually, you know, exposed it in the back area. That was one of the things we wanted to expose. But they used to run freight with hanging beef to the back of the building. They would open a door to the back, and they would slide hanging beef in, and it was a big meat packing building. So that was before Dutch Prime. That was before us. That was 3 businesses ago. But back to the origination of why that was built. It was built on the train tracks to freight meat up, to process meat, and to send it out the doors.
Oh, so there's some history.
There's some history, and if you ever look in the building, got these cool black beams. Those were the original beams that they were hanging from.
Wow.
Yeah. Is it haunted at all?
Oh, I don't know. Haunted by some beef.
The ghost of Rocky passed?
I don't know. You could do a little seance out there.
You know what? There was I was a good part of some of the people that, you know, I knew the previous owners and, you know, the owners before that as well, because I grew up in that street. I grew up in the industry.
Yeah.
And there was always characters, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I always say this whole entire project. So my first person, my first roadblock on this whole thing was my dad, right?
Yeah.
My dad was this meat packer. 2 sons. He's the first one there still, running his business and last one to leave. And this whole thing is an ode to him and and the industry that I grew up in. This is the industry that I grew up in. It was this rugged meat warehouse, and there was like just so much to it. And I hate to say it, and my mom probably would say this, but my dad telling customers to go fuck themselves. I mean, it was the industry, man.
Right.
You're dealing with this masculine, thing. And, kind of one of my favorite things that I always, talk about right now, and it's like controversial, is I don't know if you've been in our bathrooms. I mean, our new bathrooms.
Yes.
Well, of course I had to add something. And one of the things that we added is there's actually an employee in there, and she absolutely volunteered to, take some really good pictures. And
there's boudoir pictures of the hostess in the bathroom.
In the bathroom,
There's also, but to give love to the ladies, there's
I'm
apparently
excited.
shirtless pictures of the wait staff
wait
in the
staff.
ladies' room.
We listen. What's fair is fair. And again, this is another ode. You kind of walk into this masculine meat warehouse, and my dad and these guys running around, cursing and having fun. And every time I can remember as a 9-10-year-old boy, there's Playboys right in the bathroom. and to me, I'm like, that's it. I'm recreating this industry. And I think there's so many people up in the meat packing or around that could kind of understand that, that's the way it was. I mean, we're talking American history here. And, I think that should never get lost. I know we're in a changing time in the friggin' world, and everything wants to get, canceled or this or that. And I'm like, man, you can't forget where you came from. I mean, I think that we're always trying to grow. We're always trying to evolve. We're always trying to get better. But damn, like the good times and those things, they can't ever get lost. It's nostalgia.
There's no nudity in the pictures. Yes,
Nah,
they're a little risque. And if your son sees it, trust me, his Instagram feed's going to be way worse.
Yeah.
So
that's
everyone
what
chill
I
out.
don't. I'm like, man, are you living under a rock? Hey, and you know what? I should probably promote it more and just say that if it's not, this is rated R a little. I'd say PG-13, but it's not for you.
Yeah, you've done a good job of showing exactly like this is what we are.
Yeah.
And love it or leave it. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to come. If that offends you, I gave you some warning.
I
Don't
did.
come.
I like the reviews, the one from Lou M about the photos in.
Yeah, Lou M. What's going on,
but
man?
He gave 2 stars, so he wanted to give 1, but he's like, but I kind
Yeah,
of like the
those
photo.
are my favorite ones. Like the two. I remember Lou M. Right? Was he the sexually aggressive one?
He was the one that didn't
He
care for the photos in the bathroom.
They were a little much, quote, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well,
But I'm like, a little much, but you like them enough to not give only 1 star. So
Exactly. He liked it a little bit.
he liked it a little bit, right?
He liked it.
Listen, it's fun. It's supposed to be controversial. I mean, that's kind of things that we do as far as branding. We think about it and we're just like, you know what? I think this. You want the response. And,
Yeah. I mean,
and it's
making
fun.
ads out of 1-star reviews are amazing.
Yeah, they're fun, aren't they?
That's fun. I
Yeah.
did the Full House theme with it.
You know what? That was Matt Koza. He does all of our videos.
He's
and
great.
He's phenomenal.
We might need that contact.
Yeah, and you know what? We pushed Matt. I don't even think he knew that. I mean, I'm sure he does. He's the guy's unbelievable, but he really specialized in weddings. And when COVID had hit, I said, Matt, obviously the whole industry shut down.
Yeah.
Hop on board, man. Let's go. I think that we could start having some fun, and that's when you really started to see a shift in our social media. And me and him together, I think we have the same humor. I think we, have the same boundaries, if there are any boundaries. I think that we, have the same mission, and we kind of really work together well on putting together all those videos and what we want to do. You'll always see us, bring back. We want to hit an audience of cool '90s things and the early 2000s, and we always kind of bring that in and bring like this edge to it.
Yeah.
He's super talented. He's unbelievable. I love one of my favorite people to work with, actually.
I mean, Brooke, working in the service industry, did you experience this like toxic, like customers always right, entitled attitude from people that would get riled up over nothing?
very riled up. And honestly, I was talking about it last night at dinner with my dad. My favorite thing though to do was to kind of like put people in their place, but in the nicest way possible. So you get customers, they come in like, we want this like bottle of wine, blah, blah, blah. And then you're supposed to like smell it, but it's not just like smell and taste based on if you like it. It's if the wine is corked. Like, I don't fucking care if you like it. It's just, is it corked or not? So I had like one couple, or it was like a double date, and they're like, yeah, like, we just don't really like this wine. And I was like, well, unfortunately, it sounds like you guys don't actually know what your tastes are. So what we'll do is I can't comp this bottle. You're going to have to pay for it. But I will comp a couple of drinks, and we can all figure out what our tastes are. And then we can get wines based off of that. And then, like, by the end, they loved me because I, like, taught them how to do these things.
Now, Tommy, if she worked for you, how would you feel if the way she handled that situation?
So it's funny, but this is a big conversation that I have is, right, you know, we're talking about this mentality of the customer's always right. I always say like the right customer is always right. That's kind of like one of the things that I always did, the right customer. Like, but in this situation, we always go over and we're like, what is the right thing to do in certain situations? Is it just comp? Is it just comp this bottle of wine? Is it just kind of take it off, or, you know, and I just kind of, I don't have a set thing on what I do. I kind of play it by the scenario, and I honestly go off of how the people are treating, you know, back. So I kind of will go off of that and see, like, you know, what I feel like you could read someone's intention. You know, I think you could kind of get someone's intention. Is it to get something free out of it? Because people always have something different. But if it's an error on our part, or there's something that's done, it's like, I'll always make it right, man. Like, you know, and that story about, you know, the restaurant and myself, it never got told. Like, and that's what I always say to people. The place doesn't start with, you know, the 3 tables make it to 12 and then kind of work its way to where we're at now. If you didn't make it right with somebody. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is people did wait, you know, and when I first opened, I didn't realize how you're supposed to seat a restaurant. I didn't realize that you're supposed to, you know, the way you're supposed to plan things out. I didn't have any systems in place. I kind of was doing, you know, I was kind of winging the whole thing and taking advice and constantly trying to grow, and every week kind of getting better. But there were times people would wait 2 hours. And then those same people that waited 2 hours, you know, I always did the right thing, whether it was buying the entire dinner. You know,
Did you really do that?
I mean, it's been told so many times how many, you know, and I don't, nowadays people will come in and they'll tap me on the shoulder and be like, do you remember us? And I'm like, you know, I remember the faces. And they'll be like, I remember we came here, this happened, and you did this. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, but that story, you know, never gets told. But it might not get told on Yelp, or it might not get told on Google, right. but somewhere along the line it got passed on, and you know, you kind of don't get to the space that we're at by doing that, you know, by always telling everyone to go fuck themselves. I mean, you know, that's not how you get there. I mean, so that story doesn't always get told, but the shitty one and the person that you kind of said, all right, enough, it's time for you to go, that one gets told, and they never let it go. Yeah. So, I don't know, handling situations, handling customers.
Everybody's different, but they just want some hand holding a lot of the time.
They always want hand holding, and you got to take it every situation. Like, you got to take it one at a time and assess each one. And, you know, that's what I tell my guys. I have 2 young guys that they're all fresh. Everyone that works for me has 0 experience in any other restaurant. No experience. So we all kind of went through this together.
You like to mold people in the block.
No
way.
doubt.
Is that the deal?
I hire people off of people, not off of experience. And
I like that.
It's fire. It's done both ways. I like to try and see potential. Sometimes I hit. Sometimes I'm wrong.
How quick do you cut the cord? And somebody, you know it's a bad.
I probably hang on a little too long, man.
Try to give him a shot.
I try and give him a shot, and then, you know, that's a personal problem. So, you know, you're trying to hold on too long, but you know, some of these people, I had these friends that kind of hopped in, and we had fun, man. It's like we were throwing the party at my house, you know, the high school party at my house, and we're just going to have fun. And that's how it started. And it really was, and it worked, and it was organic, and we brought people along with us, but we all taught each other and learned along the way that there's so many things in a service industry as far as expectations that people have, and you know, we learned them, and it's not as if we ignored them. It's not as if we said, you know, the arrogance of really trying to say, we don't care what you want. You know, we tried to improve on them, but it was like, you know, relax, like, we're going to get there. And is it the end of the world, man? You know, is it the end of the world? I can't get down with that. One of my main things, you're talking about wine. When I first opened, I used these little mason jars. Yeah. Now, I don't drink, and it was never really even a wine, you know, it wasn't a wine connoisseur. I wasn't into any of that. But I just thought the mason jar, something about it was cool. Like, that was literally my mentality was, this is cool. We were a bring your own, so we'd go around and we'd hand out these little mason jars, and that was complaint number 1.
I don't want it in a mason jar.
It doesn't breathe properly.
It was the mason jar. And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up and drink out of the mason jar. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, I didn't understand that. And that was like my first thing. I always, Murph, he's my right hand right now, my boy Murph. He helps. He was a server. I remember Murph coming in. I met him for lunch. He sat at a high top like this. We were talking. About 5 minutes into our conversation, I'm like, Murph, what do you do? And he's like, I'm traveling to Bali and I'll be back in a month. And I'm like, when you get back, I want you to work for me. Have you worked in a restaurant? He's like, no. I'm like, I want you to work. And I could just tell by having this conversation with this kid. He was memorable. And I'm like, that's what I wanted to translate. And now, I'd call him my GM. He's kind of, he's running the spot. But I remember that was a big one for me. He knew that I never wanted to get away from a mason jar. Like in that mason jar, it was like me standing still of like, you know what? They're asking for me. And I used to say, that's how you used to tell who somebody was.
If they had beef with the mason jar.
If they had beef with a mason jar. I'm like, dude, just shut the fuck up and enjoy the person across from you, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, and that was really my mentality. But I got to say is that mentality, it did evolve. It did change. And I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, if you were to walk in today, we try and present a bottle of wine the right way and learn all of those things. Because I think that, there is a certain hospitality, part to it that we want to really elevate, but we never want to lose that. We never want to lose the edginess of that mason jar. Like we kind of always take ourselves back. So we still offer them if anyone ever asks for them.
Okay. So
yeah. No doubt.
An RIP in the mason jar, and all of a sudden I'm like,
and you're like,
that table's cool.
We're like, this dude. We always say this dude gets it. One of our favorite things is like my staff will know, and I'll just walk up. If they have a rough table, they just walk over and they'll like whisper in the side and be like, "Hey, porch 2 sucks," and then we'll just know, and you'll just kind of know. Like I leave it up to these guys, and I'm like, really? Right. I'll send the manager. I'm like, yo, fill them out, man. They suck, man. And it's just some people just suck. And I think that just kind of is what it is. And, sometimes it's a little further. How about I had a woman last week and she calls the manager over. She didn't like her skirt steak. Hey, could get overcooked. I could have messed up. There's so many things. But before we even had a chance to get into what the problem was, she basically said like, make sure you decide wisely. I have 50,000 TripAdvisor viewers. And it's just like, dude. Like,
you're like, oh,
she's
you don't know me.
Clout threatening. Interesting.
Like, that's where we're at these days,
and also
man.
TripAdvisor.
Who's looking at TripAdvisor?
Like my
Yelp.
She might have.
Yeah. It was a funny one. I keep checking TripAdvisor to see her review, but it's like it's not going to be a good one. And I'm just like, dude, we're like, what are we doing, man?
Was there a moment when this blew up? Like I know it's organic and it grew, but can you pinpoint a couple things where it took you to that next level?
You know what kind of, I mean, as far as like, more of like a viral thing was definitely the stay the fuck home movement.
This is 28% capacity. I'm going to need to talk to a manager.
The Karen police. Just stay the fuck home.
The stay the fuck home thing was the middle of a night. I remember it was a Thursday night and, it was outdoor only. It was the middle of COVID.
You built that patio.
We built
because
that patio,
of COVID.
dude. 2 weeks before Governor Murphy says, "Hey, we're going outdoor 2 weeks." I look at my construction guy, and I'm like, "Dude, figure it out. Start ripping this thing up. Let's lay some red bricks, and we're gonna create an outdoor space."
So when it was flatten the curve for 2 weeks, you started building a patio.
No, don't forget, he came out. I would say maybe late May, June, and said, "Hey, June 15th. It was June 15th." We're going outdoor dining only. I had no outdoor seats. So I said, let's rip this thing up. Let's try and create an outdoor oasis, and
it's awesome.
And that was kind of what we did. I don't even know if that would have been our intention initially to do that. So, COVID organically kind of, as not organic as it was, kind of guided us into that way to create this outdoor space. And we did. And people really enjoyed it. I think it was a time when they needed it,
And did you have it? Was it open to the public, or you opened the patio and then said friends and family only?
We opened the patio. We were rolling for a couple of weeks. We at that point. Like we were, things were, we were back in dining.
And people were itching to go out.
People were itching to go out, man. And you kind of really, I wouldn't say that we kind of caught our following at that point. Before that, I think people were starting to hear about the place, starting to come from all over. And then all of a sudden, when COVID happened and we did the outdoor, people were just trying to get outside. And I think they heard, hey, they have this cool outdoor space, go check it out. And And then that's when it started going crazy. But then the whole stay the fuck home thing happened where, you know, I had a woman, her husband initially comes up to me. He wasn't wearing a mask. And this is when you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask, you're 6 feet. It was like this, you know, it was a weird time.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of remembers that, and, you know, scary place and time. And, you know, it was who was wearing a mask and who's not, and who's following the rules and who's not following the rules. And I remember at that time, and I touched on it earlier, I'm trying to navigate through this thing. I'd never been in a pandemic before.
Right.
Ran a business in a pandemic or all these things, you know, it was all
It
new.
must be confusing when it's like you wear a mask inside, but then you take it off when you eat. It's like,
Dude,
it didn't really make sense.
Yeah, it was wild. And that was when we decided to kind of just go friends and family. But I had a man come up to me middle of the night, beg me for a table. And I'm like looking at him, of course. And, you know, we were pretty jammed at that night. I remember the exact moment, and he didn't have a mask on. He was just casually talking to us. And my host said no. And I come over and he's like, oh, it's my birthday. And I'm like, dude, is it really? And I was like, Margaret, make sure you sit him. You know, I'm like, sit this dude, make sure he gets sat, you know? And there you go, trying to please somebody. And, you know, he sat down. I remember he sat exactly where he sat. He sat on the edge. And that night the power went off. So you're in pandemic, all these things. I think we had a storm. All the power goes out on West Avenue. I have no power. We couldn't close people out. So we actually, you know, we would tell people, hey, like, we can't close you out tonight, you know, come back tomorrow and we'll close you out. And, you know, I'm sitting there, and that night I get a Yelp review about, you know, oh, not wearing a mask. And I knew exactly who it was.
But he wasn't wearing a mask.
And that was kind of my whole point, was just like, wait a minute. And I said, and this was my whole stay the fuck home thing during COVID, was, you know what? I can't say that me or you aren't going to get it. We could do our best, but it's like, dude, you're coming to a restaurant, you know, and at that, it was a busy restaurant at that time. We were doing our best to do anything, but it's not going to be perfect. Like, if you can't handle that, then my whole thing was, then maybe you should just go out, like, stay the fuck home. But the woman came in the next day, and I kind of confronted her. Of course, one of my employees, you know, started recording me, and then that kind of became a viral thing, was the whole stay the fuck home movement.
And the hats.
And the hats. Well, then we kind of twisted it, and it was just like, all right, this is where we need to make a stand. And the stand was simple. It was just like, you know, I'm not saying we're not following the rules or we're doing our best, but it's like, if you don't like, you know, it kind of tied all back to whether it was the music or whether it was the bathrooms or whether, you know, it was something that we were doing. Like, if you don't like it, why are you even coming here? Just stay the fuck home. And for anyone that's going out and their first thought is the woman the other night that goes in there with her TripAdvisor followers, and that's her intention, is to judge my, like, dude, stay the fuck home, man. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, go out with an intention to enjoy yourself, enjoy dinner, you know, have an open mind.
Ooh,
she's getting
perfect timing.
I know.
Right on time.
Getting cold, honestly.
Brooke, have you ever wanted to tell someone to stay the fuck home?
Oh, too many times.
Probably, right?
Too many times, right?
I like you taking the power back, though.
Yeah.
Because you have a good product, and if you find fault with it, maybe you should stay the fuck up. I think it's fair.
One of the things about coming back to people on Yelp, and this one bothers me, is like, he can't handle criticism. And I'm like, that's not fair, because, you know, I've had people critique or say things, and you know what? You could just tell where it's coming from and how it's coming from. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like I said earlier, I think I'm the biggest critic on every single person in that place. And, you know, and I could kind of take it against myself, but just the whole Yelp thing, like people going on and like that's what it's turned into, man. That's what the world has turned into, is, you know, everybody's got something to say, and it's just like, what about, you know, somebody's just doing their best. Right. And like, you know, I view it that way now. You know, I try and check myself, you know, and I tried to check myself in situations where I'm like, wow, how did I handle that situation? Maybe, you know, you go back, or something that I've complained about, or I've, you know, not understood, or been impatient. And I'm just like, wow, man, maybe that person was really just trying to do their best. And like, who was I to judge that? You know, I always kind of self-reflect on that.
In general with the restaurant, has there ever been something where maybe at first you didn't handle it the right way, but then looking back, or maybe someone else told you that was a fan of the restaurant, and you're like, well, maybe I will alter some things?
No doubt. You know, there's been so many things that, you know, I think I assess them. I'll assess them and say, you know, you can go off, you know, whether it's someone in my family saying, hey, we want that wine glass. And I'm like, but is that staying true? And I did bend, right? There's a situation where we're talking about this mason jar. If you come there, you know, we talk about this, and I'm just like, you know what? It is part of an experience, but it's part of the growth of the place. And, you know, there's definitely so many things that, you know, we're always, and still to this day we are, you know, my goal every day, you know, when I step in there, is to just get a little bit better. to me, that the only way to get better is to look at what's wrong or what needs to be improved. And, we're always kind of looking at that. But definitely situations like that I've, I felt like I kind of like self-reflect on, like, wow, I don't think I handled that the right way. I've reached out to people before and, tried to apologize and
really?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Sometimes no response. Okay. But you kind of put it out there, and whether you get one back or you don't, it's just kind of it. But I always say just try and clean up my side of the street, and it's just one of those things. But
did you have a moment when this was growing organically where you're like, holy shit, like how did this get so popular so fast? And did you have like imposter syndrome ever of like, I don't even know how to handle a hot spot like this?
Dude, no doubt, man. But I think at that point and it was just happening, was just roll with it. And, that was kind of what we did. But that was what, so I don't, that we obviously closed to shut down for a year. And one of those things was, it was the growth of this place, and it grew fast. And sometimes I'm like, all right, I can't wrap my arms around this. As a business, it's just like, I don't think we didn't have the proper place to operate. We didn't have the proper, it wasn't built to do what it was doing at that time. So I definitely was like, wow, this is growing fast. Let me see if I could, kind of rein this back and create, a place that does operate well, that is able to execute what we want to execute. And then we did. We closed for an entire year. I wasn't expecting it to be an entire year. But it was renovations of, it was the whole back of the house, it was the whole front of the house. It was kind of to recreate this whole vision or help it evolve.
Bathrooms, no unisex bathrooms anymore.
Bathrooms. I mean, yeah, there was things that I had to bring up to code and get done that, and that's what we were doing. So,
and you got liquor license too during that time?
And the liquor license was a huge part of it. Looking back, at one point I was like, man, I can't believe I closed, but it needed to be done in order to handle and take on.
That must have been a hard decision.
Yeah, take on that responsibility of the liquor license, no doubt.
You have like the hottest restaurant, like literally on a giant tourist destination, and you shut down. That had to have been a tough call.
It was tough, but I think it had to be done. It did.
I mean, it's what you came back as was bigger and better than ever. So it was probably a necessary step, and it looks like business is booming.
Yeah, we're I feel like we're handling. We're equipped to handle it better. To handle all those things. So it needed to happen. It was cool. I mean, or you just scaled it back. I mean, that's kind of what I look at. Or did you just scale it back? But I thought the decision was to kind of let's kind of roll with this thing. I think we have something. I think you have a brand. Let's try and evolve it and let people come along for the ride of it.
One thing that the block started making me think about was like, because you were so exclusive during that friends and family time, it was like a psychology experiment, because when you couldn't get into a place and people were talking about it, like my wife sells luxury real estate, and she had people with $5 million homes on the river, like literally calling her that I wouldn't think would want to go to the block. A steakhouse that's like, it's got a young kind of vibe to it. Blasting Biggie when I walked in there. Yeah. And that this guy in his 60s is dying to go to the block. It's like, this is an amazing, like, just experiment about putting the velvet rope up outside a door and having people be like, I can't get in there. I want in there. Yeah. Brooke, do you feel that when you go to a place and you can't get in? There's just something in human nature that you want to go in there.
And I don't want to admit that, but there definitely is that going on.
It works both ways though. Like, you kind of,
100%.
You get the person that is like, excited to come, and they're coming with the positive. But then you get, we get tons of people that, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what you cook for them, they're just going to hate on it because you have that mantra. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like if they
yeah.
Like you kind of create this thing that even if you put on the perfect show, they're always going to come back to that. They think it's like an arrogant thing, and I think they misunderstand it.
But I don't think it's an arrogant thing. It's like a delayed gratification thing. I think that good things are worth waiting for, and like, but I do hate a line. Like I want to avoid them at all costs. But especially when it comes to food, like I will wait in the line for good food. And
so your chef is the same from the beginning, or you've had new chefs come in?
No, we've had the same guys are still there.
Wow.
Same guys are still there. Yeah, day one. There's a lot of day one employees that are still rocking with me. So we've lost people. I mean, listen, that's a whole nother conversation you can get into with staff, and especially, right now we're sitting here, we talk to other restaurants, like, other people, any business, and it's like you can't find people. And
how much drama is happening within the staff? Brooke, you've experienced this? Is there drama in the kitchen? And
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No doubt.
I mean, everybody's like got their issues. Somebody's hooking up with somebody, and then somebody doesn't show. It's like it's a hot mess, and it's fun.
It's fun.
How much of a soap opera is it in the back of the block?
Oh man, I always say that'd be an interesting show, man. we got some interesting characters.
MTV, come on down.
Yeah, we got some interesting freaking characters, man. We really do. Like you really hear them, and everyone's got their own thing. But and you always listen. Business is business, but when it comes down to you care. You start to care about these people, and so it becomes yours. Like I said, it becomes your problem. Like it really does.
I feel like the best thing about being in the restaurant industry is like it brings together a hodgepodge of people, and you would never be friends with like certain people, but you then find yourself getting off at 2 a.m. and then going out till 6 a.m. and like seeing the sunrise. And I'm like, you're my best friend. Yeah. This is so fun.
You go to war with each other.
Go to war, man.
It's like game time once those doors open.
That's
right?
what we say. Listen, I have a football background. So everything that I do, in business, I reference back to, being in a locker room and being a part of a team. I say now that, in hindsight, growing up, I should have worked in a friggin' restaurant. And I recommend to anybody out there, like, dude, work in a restaurant.
Yeah, I think Yelp would be a lot better place if people understood what went into it. You agree with that?
Yes.
Dude, no friggin' doubt, man. Like,
it's not easy.
You get to work with people. You get to see all the problems that go into it. You got to overcome them every single night. I mean, last week I had an Ansel system blow in the middle of dinner over all my steaks, and we had to move. And it's like, you can't panic. You got to kind of just keep pushing through. And then the next 3 days later, all my plumbing of my bathrooms comes up, and it's like, all right, we got to keep it easy. Let's everyone pull together and find a way. We had to bring everybody through the back of the kitchen to use the bathroom. So it was we had a bathroom issue again. Wow. So. Dude, it's just all that stuff. I mean, to me, it's that's life, right? It's gonna throw curveballs at you. How you gonna handle them, dude? And in the end, it's like the night does end. So the next day will come and just take them as they come, man. Like,
do you have nights you come home and you're like, man, that was a fucked up night?
Oh, fucked up, dude. When I first opened, you can ask these guys. It was Father's Day, my first Father's Day. So I opened in May. What is Father's Day? June, maybe? Is it?
Is it June?
I think Mother's Day is June.
God, I should know that.
No, I think
Mother's Day's May.
May, yeah. I think it's
June. Father's Day's June.
Dude, it was June. I remember, I didn't live far. I would say I lived like 2 miles away. I remember like someone, just getting my dick kicked in, and I'm just like, oh my God. And someone asked me like, hey, can I get a fork? And I looked at them and I was just like, what the fuck? And I just ran out the front door and I ran home. And my wife was like, what are you doing home? And I was like, I couldn't take it, man.
Yeah, well,
I ordered Chinese food and I went back about 2 hours later when it all settled. But, I literally ran home, and I tell that story. Now it was Father's Day. It was just freaking crazy. I'm like, yo, what am I in?
Oh my God, on Father's Day too. You must have been packed.
Dude, we were smoked, man. I was like, what? And that was our first one. That was our first day of like, hey, Father's Day should be fun,
Yeah.
But
Dads love steak.
Yeah.
Dads love steak.
It was, I remember that was wild. And it was one of those things where it was like, people waited on Father's Day. They're coming out and you didn't deliver. And it was like, man, I was pretty upset about that. Like, I let these people down. Like, you feel that pressure.
Yeah.
They're coming out here just to enjoy a day and celebrate. And like, you kind of let them down. Like, that's shitty.
Yeah.
That's shitty.
I don't think you have a night off, right? Like
we do. We close Sundays and Mondays.
Oh, Sundays. But from Tuesday to Saturday, you're booked solid.
Tuesday to Saturday, yeah. We, we're fortunate enough. We're pretty busy all those nights, and just kind of it goes fast. Like, that's what we always say. We're like, it's Tuesday again, and all of a sudden it's Saturday, and like I can't believe it's Saturday. Like, the week's over, and then it's just Tuesday again.
How hard is it to balance like life and running this place?
I think just like anything, you got to be able to disconnect. Like when I'm not there, just be able to, pull away from it. But it's hard because you're so invested, right? Saturday night comes, and then Sunday you wake up and you're like, all right, what can I do to improve this upcoming week? And, you're just kind of always there. But, I think that's like a challenge that I'm just definitely at right now is trying to disconnect from it. But at the same time, it's like, you know what, man, I'm a huge Jets fan, and this is Coach Saleh's. I want to be all gas and no break.
All gas, no breaks. You keep him receipts?
Yeah,
the block keeps receipts. I think Coach Saleh, he been eating at the block?
No, he hasn't. But you know what? Pretty cool. I've made a lot of friends with a lot of guys from the organization. And
I saw Zach Wilson.
Zach was there. Elijah came by. Michael Carter's like texting me. I'm like, wow. I'm laughing. I'm like, guys, I got my whole fantasy team in my phone book.
Table number 4.
I got them all in my phone book. I got all the numbers. I'm like, this is cool. My whole
Pep
fantasy
talk, Sunday morning.
Yeah, my whole fantasy team. But you know, like literally, and that's what I say is I go back and forth on. I'm like, I'm all about disconnecting, but I just think, where it's at, still in its early stages, is keep that pedal to the metal and keep pushing the limits, man. Yeah, like keep pushing those limits and see what you can kind of come out with on the other side.
Now your branding is really top notch. I mean, we work in branded content. We know this world better than anything, but like every little touch that you have, like whether it's the signs in there, whether it's your knives, like everything is such an elevated touch. Like, is that all coming from you? You hired a consultant? Like, where did you get this branding expertise at?
I always say there's a lot of, I know, I always like to say that's what I should have done with my life. It was like, some sort of marketing and branding.
Advertising's fucking terrible. Stay away from it.
I know, but I would never, right? but you know what it is? And I tell people, because people have reached out about social media and, I have a team. Like, I mentioned Matt Koza, he does all my video and my photo. I have a Nick Perry who does all my digital design. But when it comes to it is I think any business owner, especially small business, and I would consider myself small business, I guess, is I want it to reflect. I want it to be what I want it to be. I want it to be my personality. I want it to reflect me. So when I do that, like, I kind of say I'm just trying to be me and let it show through these things. And I'm saying not giving it off to somebody else to do. I believe in doing it in-house. Like, and that's just kind of what I've stuck with from the beginning. I have a vision for it. And, like those visions, they grow, they change, they go up, they go down. And that's what you see out of the block. I mean, it kind of just tells the whole story.
I know that like the business operations is a group task when it comes to branding and the presence and little ideas of like, hey, we're going to have the logo be the doorknobs and we're going to have the,
dude, you want to know something about the friggin' doorknobs? I hired this door guy and, he came in, he like bought in, right? Like all of a sudden he's like a part of this. He's doing jobs. He's doing the doors and he comes to me and he's like, for the front, we got to do the cleavers as the doorknobs. And I was like, fuck, I'm so pissed that I didn't think of that. So I can't take credit for it.
It's a nice touch.
But it was such a good touch.
He's a door guy.
Probably an expensive
But I was
touch.
like, you know what? I did my job. I made him think out of the box because he had never done anything like that. And I was like, that's somebody. And I'm like, that's the magic of the place. I think it makes people think outside the friggin' box. It brings out a creative side to them. I think that this whole place and the branding and all these things, they make me dig deep into a creative side. I knew I had a little bit, but really dig deep and kind of find the creativity. I mean, I like to push other people to pull it out of them because I don't think people know they have it in them.
Yeah.
So
what was your background before? Being a world-class restaurateur.
Yeah.
You are, man.
I laugh when I'm like, dude, I'm a friggin' restaurateur. That, that's kind of what my profession came from.
I was there the night Dave Portnoy was there. I think that same night Naughty by Nature was there.
Yeah.
Or at least one of the dudes.
And you know who else was there with him that night? I was the famous Mets player.
Todd Frazier?
No.
Because I see he's a regular.
Yeah,
he's commented on every post.
Yeah, Flavor Fraze. Yeah,
Flavor Fraze every post because I follow both of you, and so that's the one I see.
Dude, man.
I'm like, man, Todd loves this place.
Yeah. He's a big fanboy.
Yeah,
Daniel Jones. I've seen you got a lot of people that are coming to the block.
It's cool, man. And
who was the first big name that came into the block?
Dude, you know what Food God? You remember the Food God? You guys know who the Food God is?
Who's the Food God?
He's
is he like an influencer?
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know it too until he came. He's Kim Kardashian's best friend. You ever see him? He's all the
yes, stuff. I know exactly who you're talking about.
But the Jets guy, when the Jets started coming, man, that was like, I'm like laughing. Squad. I'm like, all right, this is like if you told me when I was 10 years old that I'd have Zach, like the Jets quarterback coming up, shaking my hand, I'm like, this is cool.
Is there like a butcher client privilege, or am I allowed to know what Daniel Jones had, how he prepared his meat?
Oh, you know what?
He was medium well, wasn't he?
He seems like a medium. Are you a Giants fan?
I'm a Giants fan.
He's like, tell you what, he's a really nice guy.
I'm sure.
Yeah. You know what? I forget. I got to find out about that.
I think there's probably some privilege. There's some like attorney-client privilege.
I do judge on how people order their meat. So like I would actually, this is a good. Oh.
We have no steak sauce and we definitely don't give ketchup.
Yeah, no,
like
that's disgusting.
And we were even funny about like people order. When I initially opened, I was like, you know what? We're not going to go over medium. And it's like one of those things, hey, in a nice way, not condescending, is just order chicken.
Look, I went to Peter. First time I went to Peter Luger's, I asked for medium, and the guy was like medium rare, and I was like, no, I need a medium. He's like, You'll get it medium rare. It'll cook. He's like, it'll cook on the plate. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You just don't touch it for a little bit and it'll cook on
You
its
know
own.
what? It was amazing.
We were trying to be adamant on that. Like we were just like, you know what? Like this is, to me, it's, you know, we're trying to showcase this piece of meat, and this is how we think it is best showcased. Like this is how we do it. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. I mean, that's just kind of is what it is. I mean, like you could relate it to so many things where it's just like, why isn't that fair? And I think it is, but we bend, you know, and then when you get, you know, then people are like, well, what happens when, I have an Uncle Eric, he's one of my favorites. And they're like, what happens when Uncle Eric wants his medium well? I'm like, well, shit, you got to cook it medium well. So it's like, you know, we do bend. Like there's certain things that we got to bend on, you know?
Yeah. I like my meat, so a good vet could save it. But
A good vet could save it. Oh God.
yeah, you know, you just want a little bit of blood.
Yeah, a little bit. I know.
What advice do you give to other people in the restaurant business or people that want to jump into the restaurant business that you've learned through, you know, the trials and tribulations of taking this small thing and growing it to like something as successful as it is?
You know, I've had, you know, it's really cool because we talked about people that started with me, and I can name, you know, about 3-4 businesses of people that just worked for me and they went and, you know, took a shot and opened up a business or took a leap of faith. And one of the things that I'll always text them is, you know, someone said this to me, is a man's only limited by his imagination. So, you know, I always say is don't ever lose that. Whether it's the Yelpers or, you know, the critics and all of these people, don't let them lose who you are and from day one. And, you know, I always kind of got to go back to that, right? Is sometimes I'll reflect and say, am I changing because everybody wants me to change or this is what they want? Or am I staying true to who I am? So, you know, I always say to people, use your creativity, like dream on, man. Like that's what took the block from, you know, from 0 to 100. And it was literally all just, you know, being creative and kind of just being myself.
It also seems like there's no reward without risk. So obviously there had to have been some things that you put on the line because you believed in this throughout the journey. Like how much like investment, like did you just roll everything back into the business and just gamble that like this thing
every single time,
all the chips were in?
But, you know, I remember the initial conversations going to my dad and my brother saying, hey, I want to do this. And they said, we want no part. And my dad's exact words were, how much are you investing? And I was like, you know, I got like $25,000. You know, I was like, I went to my wife and she just kind of looks at me and goes, whatever you want to do.
Wow.
You know,
that's great to have that support.
Yeah, no doubt. She's like, whatever you want to do, I believe in you. And, you know, started with 25,000. I had 2 friends lend me money that kind of believed in me. I said, I'll pay you back as soon as I can. And then I was able to open. And then once I opened and I had money coming back, I, you know, paid what I had to pay back. And then I call it a parlay. You know, you took the profits that week and I never changed the lifestyle thing. I just kind of kept throwing it back into the block, and just kind of kept reinvesting. So it was always a risk, you know, but that was always pressure. You know, it was a lot. And then when I closed, you know, you talked about that earlier, is taking that risk of, you know, closing down this place that was making, you know, was making profit, was making money. That had momentum. And to say, you know what, this wasn't what I envisioned. You know, what I envisioned is now. But I had to go through all of these things to get to where we are. And, you know, and you had to use, you know, financially to keep you throwing that money back in. You had to keep parlaying it, man.
Was there ever a time when you're about to invest in where you're like,
never.
He was always like, this is my baby and this thing's going to grow.
Dude, this is it, man. There's one of my favorite things, you know, you kind of hear me throwing out quotes and someone has sent us and it's like, you know, a bird sitting on a branch is never afraid of falling, but it's like, its trust isn't in the branch breaking, but it's in its own wings. And I'm like to me, that's it, man. Like, you know, you just got to believe in yourself, you know, just believe in yourself. And I had to keep reminding myself that, like, dude, believe in yourself. And when I say believe in myself, I'm going to put that on the people around me too. Like, you know, the people that, you know, that I put in my life, that I choose to put in my life, they're a part of me. And, you know, you can't ever let them see that you're doubting for 1 second. Because there was days that I had little doubt, that let them creep into my mind. And then I relied on those people and they were like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you know, and
this place is awesome. Keep it going.
Keep it going, man. And don't stop. So, you know,
awesome.
And I still do that, man. I still do it every day. You know, I have my people I call and they'll know when if I'm feeling it, they'll be like, they'll give you what you need to hear. And I just kind of go with it.
Well, I mean, you have the spot to go to. I can't wait to see what's next. Are you planning on more locations or you feel good with where you're at?
You know what? I feel good with what I'm at for now. I really do. You know, today I'm kind of like, let's grind this thing out and see if we could kind of really take it to where we want. But as crazy as that sounds, like, I think keep going. I think there's more that needs to be done, and keep making it better. I like study that as people, kind of keep pushing more places, and then you have maybe 5 good places. I think I'd have one great place. And
I like that.
And for now, I think that's what we're going to roll with. So
listen, man, I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to see where you go from this. Stay true to your vision, man, because it works.
Yeah, I appreciate
it works,
man.
and you should feel that love, and don't worry about the hate.
Yeah, no
Let
doubt,
those
man.
keyboard warriors
just keep having fun
work
with
their
them.
fingers out.
That's what I say, bro. I keep having fun with them. I don't take it too serious. I hope they don't, and that's kind of what I hope they understand.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and
Brother,
thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy.
I appreciate it, man. It was I appreciate you getting me out of there, right? Disconnecting. Kind of talking about that, no doubt.
Little break. Just
doubt.
take a little trip backwards.
Yeah, no
Sometimes
doubt.
you got to do that.
Yeah, that's it. You're the man.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, man.
Zux, send it to the internet, brother.